Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RD Exam Ready podcast. I'm your host, Zak Kaesberg, RD, here to be your tutor, coach, and educator on your path towards passing the RD exam. Now, a great part about getting to that pass is knowing how to get there, calculating and bargaining your way there. As I bring up the word calculating and calculations, how does that make you feel? It can make some of us a bit tight in the chest, the second the word calculations comes up. Calculations and the M word or math is probably the most reoccurring concern that I encounter with the students I work with. There are a few reasons for it. Maybe these students never had a good math experience in their early development, and maybe that's contributing to their distaste for math later in life. Maybe it's just been a really long time and you're unsure if you can do it. Most often, what I hear from students is that they're just not good at it and they write it off as such. This is what I want you to avoid is writing math off as something you're not good at. We don't need you to be great at math or good at math or exemplary. We need you just to be good enough. And that good enough is good enough to be an RD. And you may say, well, Zach, why should I learn all these food service calculations? I want to be a clinical RD. And I challenge you to think that there could be ways that you could encounter these types of calculations, this material, and math really can speak to what it takes to be a competent RD. And you're not going to let some lousy calculations bring you down, right? Take a positive mindset that you can get better and follow along with me to find ways to excel at math and be just good enough for exam day. Let's say you're a business and you want to know what amount of money you need to make in order to cover your total costs. Total costs being like your fixed costs, your variable costs, things like your rent, utilities, bills, the food you serve, the product you give, and the labor and everyone that kind of goes into it. You're going to need to make a certain amount just to cover all of those costs. And the amount that you make to cover all those costs is known as the break even point. Break even point is when expenses and revenue are equal. Total costs is equal to total revenue. I can also calculate break even point in two different ways. So red flag and point here, RD. There are two formulas you need to know for the exam for break even point. Formula 1 is going to be finding out how much money do you need to make in order to break even. And Formula 2 is going to be finding out how many products or services you need to sell to break even. With these, we're going to go through each formula and give you some tips. For each formula, there's going to be some consistencies. Let's take this mnemonic here. Father orders venti Starbucks. FOVS. F is going to stand for your fixed cost. Fixed cost is always on top for all of these break-even formulas. That's the consistency. On the bottom, picture this with me, we are going to have 1 minus parentheses, variable costs divided by sales, close parentheses. So again, on top, fixed costs divided by 1 minus, in parentheses, variable divided by the sales, close parentheses there. You may remember PEMDAS for way back in the day. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Let's use in this case parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. This is the order we go through for order of operations. So if you can picture that formula, we have the fixed costs on top, 1 minus variable over sales on the bottom. So with PEMDAS, we're going to start with those parentheses first, the variable cost divided by the sales. Then you're going to work with what's on the bottom there. So take 1 minus what that value was. Now we have what our fixed cost is on top and the leftover bottom on the value on the bottom. Now we only need to just do division by taking the fixed cost divided by that bottom. Now you have the break-even point in dollars. Let's apply it to a really simple example and maybe write this along as we go through it. A lemonade stand wants to know how many dollars they need to break even. Their fixed cost for the stand is $10. Their variable cost is $25 and their sales are $50. Father orders venti Starbucks. Fixed over variable sales. So we're going to do our fixed costs on top are $10. On the bottom, we're going to have 1 minus in parentheses, variable divided by sales. So in this case, it'll be 1 minus 5 over 50. Okay? Per PEMDAS, we're going to start with what's in the parentheses first. So we'll do our 25 divided by 50. We had our $25 was our fixed cost, $50 was our sales there. When we do 25 divided by 50, or variable divided by sales, you get 0.5. So now on the bottom, you have 1 minus 0.5. Go ahead and do that math for yourself. 1 minus 0.5 is just 0.5. So now the way we're looking at this formula is we have $10 on top, 0.5 on the bottom. 10 divided by 0.5 gets you a break-even point of $20 in that case. For Formula 2, this formula is going to vary just slightly, but it starts the same. Father over salts veggies. This will be our second mnemonic we use here. Father over salts veggies. F being father for fixed, over salt will be selling price, and V will be variable cost. Fixed costs on top, and then on bottom of that is just going to be in parentheses, selling price minus variable cost. That's it there. Fixed over selling price minus variable there. Let's use another example to help us out. A burrito truck has a fixed cost of $50. Their variable cost is $5 and their selling price is $10 for the burrito. Father over salts veggies. Fixed on top over the selling price minus the variable. So our formula is going to be $50 on top over 10 minus 5. You're going to do what's on the bottom first there. So 10 minus 5 is 5. Now you have 50 over 5. You just have to do your division there and get an answer of 10. 50 divided by 5 gets you 10, which means I need to sell 10 burritos to break even for my burrito truck. Now you've learned more about Breakeven. You've learned about how to use it. You have a way to find it and keep it in place for exam day. Perfect practice makes perfect, RD to be. Make your practice intentional and periodic. I typically recommend once per week running through these types of questions. Not every single day, just about once or twice per week. When you encounter break-even point on the exam, you're also going to need to know which questions require the use of which formula. It's not too difficult, but it can be a challenge. Let's do some practice on these together so that you know how to see through that fog on exam day and know which formula you need to use. Tell yourself on each of these, which formula do I use? Break-even point dollars or break-even point units? Dollars or burritos, which one? A burger stand has a fixed cost of $1,200. A burrito sells for $12 and has a variable cost of $6. What is the break-even point? A burger stand has a fixed cost of $1,200. A burrito sells for $12 and has a variable cost of $6. What's the break-even point? In this case, I can tell we're going to use formula 2 in this case, where we're looking at break-even units. This is based on the fact that they listed the selling price, not the sales, the big number. They listed the selling price for the burger. They also gave me the variable cost per unit of the burger as that $6. So this tells me that I'm going to use formula 2 in this case. Let's try another. Calculate the break-even point for a deli that has a fixed cost of $500, variable cost of $100, and sales of $1,000. Calculate the break-even for a deli that has a fixed cost of $500, variable cost of $100, and sales of $1,000. This one is going to be my first formula, which is the break-even point in dollars. We can tell this based on the fact that they gave us the total sales, not the selling price for that item. They gave us the total sales of the item. Try this one. It's going to be a little bit trickier. A croissant bakery has a fixed cost of $7.50 and a break-even point of 200 croissants. Each croissant has a variable cost of $2. What should be the selling price of one croissant? croissant bakery has a fixed cost of $750 with a break-even unit of 200 croissants. Each croissant has a variable cost of $2. What should be the selling price? What are they asking me for in this question, RD, to be? Well, now they don't need us to find break-even units. They want us to find the selling price of the croissant. But we can use the break-even point formula to help us out with these. See how you're going to look for clues like the selling price, the variable costs, and the sales to help you to find out which formula to use and how to use it. Now let's do these examples together and let's see how it's done. Now, if you like these, follow along on the RD Exam Ready YouTube page if you want to see these visually. Just as we have them now, you can kind of follow along with me, but do it on your own work here. Let's start with our first one. A burger stand has a fixed cost of $1,200. A burrito sells for $12 and has a variable cost of $6 per burrito. What is the break-even point? First off, you have to decide and remember which formula you're using. In this case, that's going to be formula 2. Write your formula on your page here. Your formula, you knew it was going to be father over salts, veggies, fixed cost over the variable cost, father over salts, veggies, so it'll be fixed cost divided by the selling price minus the variable cost, right? So that'll be the formula that you're going to stick with for that one there. So now plug those numbers in for your formula, right? Your fixed cost was $1,200 over your selling price of $12 minus the variable cost of $6. We know we need to do what's on bottom first, so go ahead and do that. You'll have the 1,200 on top. And on the bottom, after 12 minus 6, you'll have 6 on bottom. Now, do 1,200 divided by 6. When you do that, you are going to end up with 200 burritos. 200 burritos is what is required for us to break even on this one. Perfect. For the second one, what is the break-even point for a deli with a fixed cost of $500, variable cost of $100, and sales of $1,000? We know we're going to be using formula 1 in that case, right? So that is going to mean we're going to have the fixed on top. On bottom, we're going to have 1 minus the variable divided by the sales, right? Perfect. So now plug those numbers in. 500 divided by 1 minus 100 over 1,000 in parentheses there. You know, per PEMDAS, you got to start with those parentheses, right? So we're going to have our 100 divided by 1,000, which is going to be 0.1 in that case. So now we have 500 divided by 1 minus 0.1. 1 minus 0.1, quick math we can do here, tells us that we can end up with 0.9 on the bottom. Then 500 divided by 0.9, once you plug that into your calculator, you should end up with about 555.55, which I rounded up to $556 here. Very good. Now let's do our last one here together. A croissant bakery has a fixed cost of $7.50, break-even units of 200 croissants. Each croissant has a variable cost of $2, but what should be the selling price of one croissant? Start by setting up the formula still, even if we don't have all the info. We're using formula 2 here, so we know that that's going to be the fixed over the sales divided by the variable cost, right? Over here, you'll have your break-even units. Perfect. Now plug in your numbers for what you got. So you have 200 croissants, that's your break-even point. You've got your $7.50 as your fixed costs. You don't know your selling price in this case, so that's going to be X minus the variable, which was going to be $2. Now, this is a little bit of a challenging part that we don't do a lot in our day-to-day, and that's why we struggle. We need to get X minus 2 to the other side. We need to move it from this side and move it over because we can't really do much with X the way it is right now. Because we have division right here between 750 and X minus 2, you can multiply X minus 2 on both sides. So by multiplying X minus 2 by one side, you are canceling out that X minus 2 and moving it over to the other side. X minus 2. Okay. Your formula now looks a bit different. Now it's 200 in parentheses X minus 2 is equal to 750. So now I have the X minus 2 moved over with that 200. The 200 is on the outside of this parentheses, but the only thing you need to do is multiply both these numbers by 200. You might remember the FOIL system a little bit was similar here. So we have 200 X minus 2. Now we're going to multiply all those. So if I do 200 times X, that's going to be 200X, right? And if I do 200 times minus 2, or negative 2 as it kind of looks here, or if I just do 200 times 2, that's going to be 400, right? So now it's just 200X minus 400. Now you're just doing your basics to try to get X by itself. So I'm going to add 400 to both sides because I have minus 400 on one side. I can then add both sides with 400 to get rid of that. So I do the 750 plus the 400. That's going to get me 1150 there. 200X is on the other side. And then finally, I just need to divide everything by 200 in this case. 200 is going to get me a selling price of $5.75 in that case, or B being your best answer in this example here. Look at you, you're a break-even point master. And as I said, keep these calculations consistent in your study process. Make sure you're using your scratch paper to write out your work so that you don't fall victim to those easy mistakes. That wraps up today's lesson, RD2B. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast if you're enjoying the RD Exam Ready podcast. I'm your host, Zak Kaesberg. Happy studying to you, RD2B.